Balance had spent her life in small, steady rhythms: breakfast at 7, a call to the neighbors at noon, a cup of cardamom tea before bed. At 51, she carried the soft certainties of years, the smell of laundry, the careful fold of her daughter's clothes, and the easy trust she gave to those she loved. Jahar Khan, 42, her husband, was a man of short temper but steady hands, who believed in protecting what was his. Their children had been their pride. 2 daughters, one of 25, quiet and studious, another of 15, bright and impulsive, and a son, 20, Ali, clever with phones and screens in a way that made Balance both proud and uneasy. Ali spent hours online, and sometimes Balance had nudged him gently. "Eat, beta. Enough of the screen." He always smiled and promised he would, and then went back to the blue light of the phone. Balance's life changed in the smallest of ways at first. A missing mug, a door left slightly ajar. Then, one afternoon, she found something that lodged in her chest like a stone. She had gone into Ali's room to fold a shirt and found, tucked behind a stack of magazines, a small voice recorder and a cheap camera facing the cracked door of the washroom. Her hands trembled as she realized how long they could have been watched. How many private moments might have been recorded without their knowledge. She took the recorder to Jahar that night. Jahar grunted and waved a hand. "Kids and gadgets," he said. "They tinker. We'll throw it away." He did not want to believe the thought that someone close could betray them. Balance, trusting the man she loved, set the thing on a shelf and tried to let sleep come. That trust collapsed like a brittle branch in a storm. Ali changed in ways no parent recognizes until it is almost too late. He became careful about his footsteps, patient in his words, apologetic in moments when he had never apologized before. Then he began asking for small favors, passwords, to borrow money, to use the car. When Balance refused to give him the car late at night, he sulked, then begged. It was the kind of cruelty that wears away willpower, the silent strategy of someone who knows he has the upper hand. The first blackmail note arrived folded under the sugar jar, written in a hand that imitated Ali's but not quite his, a phone number and 3 words: comply or watch. Balance felt the old familiar heat of panic in the colder, more rational fear. She did not tell Jahar. Shame sometimes is as binding as any chain. Ali's tactics escalated. He began displaying knowledge of things only the family knew. He'd say casually at dinner, "You should throw away that box in the attic. Ma, it smells like old paper." Once, he mentioned a letter Balance had written years ago, a letter she had thought only she and Jahar had read. The house, she began to feel, was no longer theirs. "Look at this view," Ali said, voice low. He took a step closer to Jahar. "You always protect things you think are yours." There was no love in the sentence. There was precision. Before anyone could react, Ali shoved. It was a force born of calculation, not frenzy, enough to make Jahar stumble, enough to send a cascade of gravel and a human body over rock. Balance screamed. The world split into 2. The sound of Jahar's body hitting stone, and a sudden dreadful silence. Ali grabbed Balance's wrist hard. "Don't scream," he said. He looked at his sister with a slow, deliberate stare. "You know the rules, don't you? Compete or comply." Those words woke a fierce gait and Balance she hadn't known still lived in her. She pulled free, shoved Ali back, and for a single heated moment the old Jahar, or at least the man he had been, rose from the wreckage of his broken body. The daughter came running, hands trembling, and with all the anger and love she could gather, she struck at Ali with a rock. The youngest called the ambulance, fingers numb as she dialed. Ali did not run. He stood there watching, calculating what storm to weather next. Sirens were an hour away. Neighbors were a chorus of shouts. Ali's plan had not accounted for the stubbornness of small towns where people knew each other's faces. It had not counted on Balance's refusal to be a silent victim. The family's trust cracked outward. Jahar drank later than before, his hands shaking. The eldest daughter locked herself in her room to study, away from the tension that crackled through the hallway. The youngest began to flinch at doors. Balance stopped sleeping. 2 months after the recorder had been found, Ali proposed a family seashore trip. For bonding, he said. Jahar, who wanted the old rhythms restored, booked the rooms. Balance packed the tea and the thermos, but the knot in her stomach tightened as the car pulled up the jagged road toward the cliffs beyond Gulmarg. They reached the overlook at dusk. The wind cut at them like a blade. Ali had been silent for most of the drive, eyes on the road like a man who knows the exact time of a storm. When they stepped onto the wet grass at the cliff's edge, he turned with an almost casual tilt of his head. Balance confronted him one evening, her palms pressed to the kitchen counter while the kettle hissed. "Allie," she said, voice small. "What are you doing? Why are you spying on us?" Allie smiled like a child. "You worry too much." "Ma, I just want our family to be safe." The smile did not reach his eyes. He used what he had to make small seizures of power. He locked the car keys the night. Jahar planned a trip to the market. He diverted small sums from the household account. He sent anonymous messages to the neighbors that seeded gossip and doubt. When Balance threatened to call the police, Ali's temper flashed. He spoke of consequences that were not. Threats in tones meant to be reasonable but were heavy with menace. Hospital smells, antiseptic and fear, became the backdrop of the following days. Jahar survived, scarred and quieter. Ali was arrested not only for the shove, but also because, in the investigation, the recorder and camera were found. The police discovered a trove of files, hours of private footage, threats sent to accounts in false names, and a ledger of petty thefts. He had meant to break them. He had tried to burn the house of their lives into a pile he could step over. The trial was messy and public. The village came to watch a family dismantled. Ali, in the court's cold light, showed no remorse, only the slick, rational articulation of a man who believed himself boxed in by a wrong life. Balance testified with trembling voice. The eldest daughter told the court about the nights she had heard voices from the attic. The youngest spoke of the day she saw Ali's shadow move across the washroom door. In the end, Ali was sentenced to juvenile detention, a sentence meant for rehabilitation that felt like a small sun for a family long soaked in storm. It did not erase what had been done. It did not mend the bones or the heart, but it made something else possible. A slow, difficult rebuilding. Balance learned, painfully, what it meant to forgive and what it meant to protect herself. She and Jahar moved the family to a new town across a river. They replaced locks, changed numbers, and most importantly, spoke about boundaries, about dignity, and about the names we give to the harm done to us. The daughters went back to school. Jahar went to therapy for his temper, and Balance found ways to sleep again. Not because the sky was always calm, but because she chose to breathe through the storm. Ali's final note in their mailbox, months after the trial, was a single sentence: "I wanted power. I didn't know what to do with it." It read like a confession and a question. Balance folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Some wounds demand time. Other wounds demand action. In the quiet house on the new lane, Balance would sometimes sit at the window and watch the sun push through fog. There were scars she could show, a stiff shoulder, a limp that time could fix, but she wore them like armor. The family's happiness was not the same as before. It had been tempered by fear, but it had been rebuilt on firmer ground: honesty, vigilance, and the hard, ordinary courage of surviving.